It's been a year since my last ranking video, and I honestly have to say, this was the hardest one by far. Kanye had double the albums to talk about, yet there was just so much to say about Kendrick's music, artistry, talent, and influence. It made this video very tedious. That being said, it's finally done, it's finally here. My connection to Kendrick's music is personal. I was in the 7th grade when I heard Good Kid, M.A.A.d City for the first time, and I was living the exact opposite lifestyle Kendrick was rapping about. But his talent was undeniable, his storytelling ability, his beat selection, his ability to make catchy, entertaining music with a deep message. Kendrick is one of my favorite artists of all time, and ranking his albums is no easy task. So spoiler alert, they're all phenomenal. That's not to say these projects are without flaws, well, most of them at least. Let's get to what you came here for. Let's start with the number 6 spot. Some people don't count Untitled as a full album, but with 8 songs and being a little over a half hour long, I think it absolutely counts. These were a couple B-sides from T-Pab that didn't make the cut, but Kendrick clearly wanted to put them out. I think the aesthetic of this project is great. The murky green cover, all the tracks literally being untitled, the mixes and production are a bit clunky, but again, unmastered, it's kind of the point. And I think that's really cool. What I find most interesting about this project is how some songs seem to fit so well onto T-Pab while others don't. For example, Untitled 5 and 8 feels like songs that were intended for T-Pab, and by the 2014 date, that makes sense. But songs like Untitled 1 and 6 feel like they're from a totally different project. And that's not to say these songs are bad, Untitled 6 happens to be my favorite. The drums, the nice soft keys, and a beautiful feature from CeeLo Green. Kendrick's verse is great. Kendrick tells this woman that he doesn't want her to change or hide any details that may be seen as embarrassing. He's attracted to her and would rather her build on top of these traits that some may view as odd, but not him. It's a beautiful track. My gripes with this project include the length of some songs, like Untitled 7, which is split into 3 parts over 8 minutes. The first part with that hypnotic, trippy beat is great and was even released as a single, but I honestly prefer the second part with the little prelude from Alicia Keys and Swizz Beatz' son, Egypt. Kendrick's verse here is fantastic, but it flows into a jam session of lyrics we'd hear on Untitled 4, probably my least favorite track on the album. This last part goes on for almost 4 minutes and isn't the most entertaining to listen to. I found myself skipping this part after a couple initial listenings. I think Untitled 4 is a bit of a wrench in the grand scheme of this project. It's slow, it drags, it feels a bit empty in comparison to the rest of the songs. The dichotomy of head like intelligence and sex also doesn't do much for me. There are a ton of great lines on here as well, like on Untitled 8 when he says,
"My homegirl got a credit on scam. She got a scholarship to college, but she don't give a damn. Even when she got a broke bitch wishing."
And on Untitled 2 when he says,
"Cornrow Kenny, he was born with a vision. I'm morning with the mixed dashboard, triple digit parallel pump like an alien can't visit."
Or one of my favorite parts on Untitled 5 when he says, That song also has my favorite hook on the album. It doesn't come in for about a minute, but those Anna Wise vocals are gorgeous. What you doing? This album is super jazzy, just like T-Pab, but it really does have its own identity. With all the leaks and unreleased music Kendrick had for Mr. Morale, I would love to see a second installment of this project with those songs on it. 8 out of 10. Here's the tracklist ranking. The lowest score in this ranking is an 8. This man is a legend.
I ain't got no money.
Section 80 has no right being as good as it is. The debut album coming off mixtapes like Overly Dedicated and his self-titled EP, which are both good, but in my opinion, Section 80 blows them out of the water. This album was just a taste of who Kendrick would grow and evolve into, but all the seeds are here. The album dives into subjects that have become a staple of Kendrick's music: the crack epidemic, addiction, systematic racism, and the cycle of abuse people growing up in impoverished situations tend to find themselves in. A line that I found wouldn't leave my mind was this one from Absol's outro, where Kendrick says,
"See, a lot of y'all don't understand Kendrick Lamar because you wonder how I can talk about money, hoes, clothes, God, and history all in the same sentence."
And he's right. Kendrick was only 24 when this album came out, and in every song there's this maturity, this self-awareness and intelligence that so many people his age and in more fortunate situations don't even have. From the first song, appropriately titled Fuck Your Ethnicity, Kendrick exclaims that your background is irrelevant to him. He said that he notices that his fans are of all races and backgrounds and has open arms for anyone that can relate to understand his story, regardless of race or ethnicity. The pianos at the beginning of this song are so great, and I think the hook is so catchy. I think a lot of the hooks on this album are catchy. Blow My High, A.D.H.D, The Spiteful Chant, Hold Up. I couldn't stop singing those songs to myself. A.D.H.D has to be my favorite track on here. Throughout the album, Kendrick talks about people of his generation as victims of circumstance, people affected by politics and wars that they had no say in. A.D.H.D is about drug culture and the prevalence of drug abuse that his generation suffers from. My other favorite song from this album is the lead and only single, HiiiPoWeR, a song about self-enlightenment through reflection, acknowledgement, and hard work. It touches on race, public figures, conspiracy theories. My favorite line is,
Who said a black man in the Illuminati? Last time I checked, that was the biggest racist party.
The feature list on this project is great, with everybody bringing their A game. BJ the Chicago Kid has these soulful vocals on Kush and Corinthians. Ab-Soul takes up a bulk on the track Ab-Soul's outro and is always amazing to hear. But my favorite feature on here has to be Schoolboy Q on the Spiteful Chant. I think this song was removed from streaming a few years ago because of some clearance problems, and I wish they would resolve this because the album sits incomplete with new listeners not knowing about it. I love this line from Kendrick.
Everybody heard that I fuck with Trey. Anyone that tell me I made it, nigga, I ain't big shit. If you gave me a handout, I'ma take it, risk and break it.
And this line from Q. I think this album is brazen. It was cutting edge for the time, and I still think it holds up very well. 8.5. Here's the tracklist ranking.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Damn is a lot. I think it's a phenomenal album, truly phenomenal, but there is a lot of background to this album. I remember being in my junior year of high school anticipating this project, and after hearing little rumors here and there, in March 2017, The Heart Part 4 was released. You don't know how obsessed I was with this song. Kendrick's first verse is short but focused, talking about his wealth, his faith. He juxtaposes being a down-to-earth person with his thirst for fame and success. Still living in Compton, but being one of the most successful artists of his generation. I don't know if this was ever debunked, but I remember people at the time saying that the second verse was about Big Sean. I know, of all people. I'm learning now that it was never him, and side note, I never really bought into that beef. It never seemed like it had the most solid standing. Little editor's note here, did you guys hear that leaked, original version of Element? If you know what I'm talking about, that verse probably was about Big Sean. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I can't play it here. Just Google it. Just Google Kendrick Lamar original Element original version, whatever. It's really, really good. Yeah. Anyway, regardless, Kendrick goes off on this verse. I love this line. It's a great song and might be my second or third favorite installment in the Heart series. Kendrick ends the track by saying, and again, I cannot find anything to back this up, but I oddly remember Joey Badass tweeting something about how other artists were trying to drop on the same day as him, because April 7th was the set day for All American Badass, and then Kendrick pushed Damn a week back or something. I searched and searched and I couldn't find anything on this, but I'm so confident I remember it. Anyway, Damn released on April 14th, and whew, this album is still amazing. The only single from this album was Humble, and it really doesn't show what the album was going to sound like at all. Damn is a very religious album, with the title being short for Damnation, and its themes of wickedness and weakness appear depending on how you listen to it. Tracks 1 to 14 tell the story of Kendrick's weakness. He's humbled by his own life experiences that God has put him through to test his faith, and it's comparable to Kendrick's mindset at the time. As the album progresses, the songs become more thoughtful, and the production goes from harder to softer. Songs like Humble, Yah, Loyalty, Pride, God, and Feel show his weakness. He's searching for humility on Humble and Pride, realizes as a human being he needs to be able to trust and love others on Loyalty and Love. He fights temptation on Yah, and struggles with his depression on Feel. Playing the album in reverse, tracks 14 to 1 tell the story of Kendrick's wickedness. A Kendrick who gives in to temptation, becomes lustful, greedy, and arrogant, and these traits end up getting him killed. The blind woman that shoots Kendrick at the end of Blood could be God killing him for giving in to his wickedness, or it could be a metaphor for Kendrick killing his own ego as punishment. Lust confronts Kendrick's wicked mindset both sexually and financially, sleeping with random women and skipping work instead to steal. DNA is completely recontextualized, as now this is Kendrick's ego talking. The softer songs like Feel become more about paranoia than honesty. There's fear instead of confinement. The production on this album was extremely different from what was previously heard on To Pimp a Butterfly. The jazzy saxophones are traded in for a more trap-influenced hip-hop style and hard-hitting drums that pack a punch. The lyrics here are amazing as well. I love on Pride when he says, and on DNA when he says, and on my favorite song, Fear, when he says, fear is both wickedness and weakness in one song no matter which way you look at it. Living through fear would mean to live under the fear of God, to be at his mercy and remain faithful. Living through rap would mean to follow the stereotypical lifestyle of drugs, gun violence, etc. that we could consider wicked. Fear is the album's climax, where Kendrick talks about his fear at 7 years old, 17 years old, and 27 years old. His fear is becoming more intense and real as he gets older. Fearing his mother's strict rules, fearing death by police or rival gangs, and the fear of becoming comfortable in his success. To quickly touch on the outro Duckworth, this is where everything comes to an end, or a beginning depending on how you listen. Top Dawg was planning to rob the KFC where Kendrick's father worked when he was a kid. Because Top Dawg knew Kendrick's dad was a cool, generous guy, he let him slide when he decided to rob the place. And as Kendrick says, what a crazy coincidence. With all that being said, here's the tracklist ranking. 9 out of 10. This album is absolutely incredible.
I gotta put me first. I gotta put me first. I gotta put me first, Lucius.
Okay, there's something I want to get out of the way before we dive into this album. I think having Kodak Black on this album was dumb and insensitive. I understand the point Kendrick is trying to make, I just strongly disagree with it. And if you're not sure why, just read the man's controversy and legal issues section on Wikipedia. Typically, I would say you can do this kind of thing for so many artists, but I don't know, man. Having a song like Mother I Sober be followed up by a voice clip of someone with that many serious allegations just doesn't really sit right with me. I just want to get that out of the way. I sadly think it holds this album back from being damn near perfect. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers was without a doubt Kendrick's most anticipated album. 5 years after the release of Damn, we were all so hungry for some new music. After an official announcement in August 2021 that the album was coming, and then in April 2022, just about a month before the album would release, Kendrick shared the official release date and title, and everyone went crazy. After Spotify leaked The Hard Part 5 on accident, Kendrick just dropped it, and it was great. The first lines we hear on this album come from United in Grief, where we hear Sam Dew sing, these opening words serve as a good representative for the album. This is Kendrick's most personal project to date. It's sensitive. At times it can feel uncomfortable, and most importantly, it's vulnerable. Something we thought the so-called savior of hip-hop couldn't be. Here we are, 5 years later. Kendrick has received global praise for his art, had 2 beautiful children, became the only artist in his genre to receive a Pulitzer Prize, lived through a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, and it became too much. We get some beautiful lyrics on this project, like on Count Me Out when he says, and on Mirror when he says, and on United in Grief when he says, and don't get it twisted, just because this album handles a lot of sensitive subject matter, Kendrick still does what he does best, blend it with some bars. Songs like N95, Rich Spirit, and Mr. Morale have great beats. The production all over this project is fantastic, even on a song like Save Your Interlude, which is just Baby Keem rapping over violin. It sounds beautiful. The only song besides Silent Hill that I don't really listen to is We Cry Together. I don't think it's hard to see why. I think the Alchemist beat is great, and the acting is too, but I don't know. I wouldn't say I necessarily enjoy it. Appreciate it, absolutely. Enjoy, I don't know. There are a few key songs on this project in my opinion. Savior, Auntie Diaries, Mr. Morale, Mother I Sober, and Mirror, so I'm gonna briefly go through each of these. Savior is my personal favorite on the album. I think the beat is phenomenal, the Baby Keem hook is infectious, and Kendrick spits facts all over this thing. Starting off by making it clear that though people may inspire you, they are not equipped to solve all your problems. The song speaks on societal issues like race, the COVID-19 pandemic, and his place in all of that as the so-called savior of hip-hop. Should he be constantly speaking up, or should he protect his peace? What will tweeting to strangers really do to benefit the cause? My favorite lyrics on this one, which are my favorite lyrics on the album, go, "The crown of thorns Kendrick wears on the cover is a nice compliment to the song, especially at the beginning of the third verse where he says he's not our savior and he's as human as the rest of us." It's the first of a few songs that truly make this album what it is. Anti-Diaries is an interesting song that's been interpreted a couple different ways. My personal interpretation is that this is Kendrick saying despite his past behavior, he loves the trans people in his life, and I think that's a beautiful message. We don't often get artists acknowledging old hurtful behavior this boldly, but Kendrick is always an artist who says things with his chest out, talking about his trans uncle who was very influential of him and caring of him as a child, and his cousin who he drifted away from at one point. The song is about growth, acknowledgement of fault, and acceptance of others. It does it in a very interesting way, but it is what the song is about nonetheless. Mr. Morale changes up the pace with a hard-ass Pharrell beat, a great hook from Sam Dew and Tana Leone, and hard-ass bars. I love when he says, I don't know how he delivers such heartbreaking lines with so much confidence. Mother I Sober is the climax of this album, and it's a tough listen. Kendrick talks about his trauma, his mother's experience with sexual abuse, and the fear that Kendrick also might be being abused. Kendrick's addictions never came in the form of substance, rather it was sex. There's a sense of despair and hopelessness as he confesses to cheating on his fiancée. He talks about the remorse and guilt he still has to this day. Kendrick wants people to break free of these generational curses in their family and exclaims that we all have the power to do so. Mirror is the outro to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and I think what I like most about this song is it feels like a victory. The war isn't close to over, but the hardest battle was just won. That hook, I choose me, I'm sorry, says so much with so little. That third verse is gorgeous, and those last lines where he says, it's so beautiful and ends the album on such an amazing note. With all that being said, here's the tracklist ranking. 9.5. I love this album so much.
I ain't saying nothing.
Life without parole.
It was him, that dude hiding behind that girl right there.
Good Kid, M.A.A.d City is a masterpiece. Is that really a shocking sentence? Kendrick's second studio album was released only 15 months after his first, and it blew hip-hop out of the water. Would you believe me if I told you the only lead singles from this album were Swimming Pools and The Recipe? Backseat Freestyle, Poetic Justice, and Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe weren't released as singles until the beginning of 2013. It's a concept album that follows the story of teenage Kendrick Lamar living in Compton. From the first song, Sherane, A.K.A. Master Splinter's daughter, we're told about a young woman named Sherane.
Yeah, no shit, honey!
He talks about her family's history of gang violence and how it scared him. This song sets the tone for the rest of the album. Some of my favorites on this album are M.A.A.d City, Money Trees, and Backseat Freestyle, where Kendrick comes with some hard bars and beats. M.A.A.d City has that crazy drop, Money Trees has great drums and probably the best feature on the album in the form of J-Rock, and the catchiest bridge from Anna Wise. But my favorite beat on this whole project has to be Backseat Freestyle, produced by the one and only HiiiPoWeR. The drums, the samples, the bells, they're so good! Kendrick doesn't only come with bars on this project though, we get some serious moments on songs like The Art of Peer Pressure. This song is where the story truly begins, as Kendrick tells a very vivid story about succumbing to peer pressure. He thinks committing these random robberies is just normal behavior for a person his age in Compton because his peers have convinced him of that. He only realizes how unnecessary and risky it was after the fact. There's an amazing beat switch in this song, and the juxtaposition of the pretty flowy part 1 to the serious grounded part 2 is amazing. Swimming Pools is another moment where Kendrick slows down and opens up, this time about alcoholism. What sounds like a dance banger is actually a very introspective song about the social pressure and self-loathing attitudes that drive people to drink. I will truly never know how this man does it. One of the most popular songs on this album, and for good reason, is Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst. From beginning to end, Kendrick breaks down the stories that pulled him away from gang culture that he was surrounded by his whole life, speaking on the spiritual rebirth that provided him with an escape from the streets. On Sing About Me, Kendrick takes the perspective of two different people before rapping from his own perspective to discuss the trials and tribulations of his life. On Dying of Thirst, he picks up where the outro of Swimming Pools left off. The character Dave gets killed and his brother wants revenge. It's a beautiful song and a lot of people's favorite. This album also had a few loosies, County Building Blues and the Black Hippie remix of The Recipe. I still cannot believe we never got a Black Hippie album. They would have been like the Justice League of hip-hop. Good Kid, M.A.A.d City is one of the best hip-hop and concept albums ever made, and it would be wrong to give this album anything less than a 10 out of 10. Here's the tracklist ranking, and we got one more to go. To say that To Pimp a Butterfly is a masterpiece is a few things. It's repetitive, obvious, and undermining, in my opinion. Albums like To Pimp a Butterfly deserve a better title, and that title is Benchmark. Anthony Fantano says that best, and I truly can't think of a better way to say it. This album is so important and special to me. I remember being so excited for its release. Before a title or tracklist was revealed, I was able to pre-order it on iTunes, and when the album finally did release, I remember feeling changed. The first song, Wesley's Theory, starts with this Boris Gardner sample that ties into the whole caterpillar-butterfly metaphor. The lowliest caterpillar becomes a beautiful butterfly. It's possible for black people to succeed despite all the institutionalized racism that works against them. The track talks about racist American institutions that were founded on the principles of white supremacy to exploit black creators for profit. Kendrick refers to hip-hop as his first girlfriend and how the love for his craft quickly turned into lust. In the first verse, he speaks from the perspective of a younger version of himself, dreaming of being rich and escaping Compton. He doesn't realize all the dangers that come with money and fame yet. The second verse juxtaposes these ideas and talks about how America encourages reckless spending because the government gets taxes from it. This also ties into the namesake of the title, Wesley Snipes, who served jail time for tax evasion. The next song is a personal favorite of mine, For Free. I love the chaotic nature of this song. That jazzy instrumental is infectious and we're hooked in right away from that rant by Darlene Tibbs. The rant shows us how the relationship between Kendrick and this girl is a metaphor for the way America treats black people in an attempt to diminish their character and lower their self-esteem. Kendrick goes on to explain in detail that this dick ain't free. There's so much in this short song that you could dedicate a whole video to it, but as a whole, Kendrick touches on having to settle for America's leftovers despite doing the dirty work that made America rich. It's a short but amazing interlude and I adore the music video. Look at that little smile. The next track is my second favorite off the album, King Kunta. The bass line on this song is insane. Kendrick drops bars all throughout this track. King Kunta is an oxymoron. Kendrick is talking about how he's oppressed like a slave yet reigns dominant like a king. At this point, Kendrick is running the rap game like a king, but it wasn't too long ago that he was poor, or as the song says, walking. People didn't care about him then, and he doesn't want those people to care about him now. They just want to cut his legs off to keep him from running the game. My favorite line on this song is Kendrick's flow and the way the beat grows with intensity as it goes is so cool. Institutionalized juxtaposes King Kunta. Kendrick talks about how money can corrupt you and how everyone is institutionalized in some way. Even the word institutionalized has connotations of insanity. We say that people are institutionalized because there's something wrong with them, but we never stop to think that maybe it's the institution that's wrong. The chorus says that shit don't change until you get up and wash your ass, and while it sounds funny, it's saying that you have to clean up your act or nothing will change. Unless you put in the work, you won't appreciate what you gain. Following Institutionalized is These Walls, and this song is about... it's about pussy. The track is about Kendrick having sex with a woman who has children with a man in jail for killing one of his friends. Kendrick looks at this as revenge for his friend, but he also doesn't like using his status to seduce someone for that purpose. These walls are symbolic of being imprisoned by the entire situation. This cycle of murder, lust, seduction, revenge, guilt. The song is groovy, those synth leads are amazing, and that hook from Anna Wise, Thundercat, and Bilal is incredible. And those keys before the third verse are heavenly. This album is filled with saxophone, and besides For Free, this song might have my favorite saxophone parts. Quickly, we change the pace as we jump to You, where Kendrick raps with this frantic flow, expressing disappointment in himself. Calling himself a failure, he talks about how complicated loving himself is. The instrumental is this eerie jazz jam that is so anxiety-inducing and matches his tone perfectly. The second part of the song features one of Kendrick's best performances to date. Kendrick is crying into the mic about his depression, his survivor's guilt, and beating himself up over things out of his control. He talks about being on tour while one of his friends was killed in a drive-by shooting and not being able to forgive himself for not being there for him. You can hear him drinking and the drink swishing around in the bottle. It's an insanely emotional performance and, like I said, remains one of his best. The next song is alright, and this track provides a moment of levity and hope. While the song is trying to be optimistic, the message is driven by suffering that makes us search for this change. The song goes so hard, the beat, the bars, it's absolutely incredible. Kendrick touches on police brutality, his faith in God, and this song became an anthem for the protest in the summer of 2015. The vocal samples are so smooth, the subs are too tough, and as per usual, that saxophone is sexy. It's an amazing song with a great message and another one of my favorites. For Sale has one of the prettiest instrumentals on the whole project. There are synths in the back of this mix that scratch my brain, a bass line that makes me want to ascend, and beautiful keys all throughout the track, and oh yeah, the saxophone is great as always. This track has a lot to do with the devil or Lucy tempting Kendrick. The first verse is very lovey-dovey. Kendrick talks about their relationship with Lucy as if they're romantic partners. The second verse continues this as Kendrick lists all the ways Lucy can make your life better, but at what cost? It's a great song that I honestly slept on for a long time. Mama is a beautiful song about growth and self-reflection. Kendrick's experiences with his internal struggles allowed him to come back home, which can be taken in a few different ways. It can mean literally returning home to Compton and going back to his roots, or it can mean Kendrick returning to his former pre-fame self. Or maybe even both. I love the line where he says, I love the drums on this song, they're so smooth, and those synths, oh my god. Hood Politics is a banger. This song has always made me want to slap the shit out of someone. We talked about how institutionalized juxtaposed King Kunta, and I feel the same way about Hood Politics to Mama. Kendrick now really takes us back home, putting us in the mind state of his younger self, when the hood was all he knew. On the first verse, Kendrick rebels against the politics that he's been talking about all over the album, saying that he should just rap and not worry about what he's saying. I love this line from the second verse, and this line from the third verse. This song is too good, and I love everything it has to say. How Much a Dollar Costs is one of my favorite Kendrick songs ever, from the amazing instrumental to the gorgeous hook from James Fauntleroy, and everything it has to say about wealth, poverty, and faith. Throughout the record, Kendrick's talked about how Lucy, the devil, and Uncle Sam, America, have tried to tear him down, but suddenly he meets a homeless man at a gas station in South Africa. The homeless man asks Kendrick for $1 and Kendrick refuses, but he begins to feel bad after the homeless man keeps asking him for a single dollar. Kendrick's selfishness is evident as he won't give the homeless man $1. The story takes a turn when the man reveals to Kendrick that he is God and that Kendrick's selfishness will cost him a place in heaven. It's an incredible story with such an interesting message, and a fun fact about this song is Barack Obama named it his favorite song of 2015. Man's got taste. The most underrated song from this album, in my opinion, is Complexion. It's got a great beat with hard-hitting drums, beautiful introspective lyrics, and the best feature on the record in the form of Rhapsody. This song is about colorism specifically and how it affects black people, how beauty standards say that lighter skin is more attractive, putting down people with darker complexions. I love the line where he says, Another fun fact for this song is Prince was originally supposed to feature. A Prince Kendrick Lamar song would have been too powerful for us. Next is the best song on To Pimp a Butterfly, The Blacker the Berry. What isn't there to like about this song? The banging drums, the aggressive rapping, the amazing assassin hook. And the fact that the Grammy performance from this song was essentially scrubbed from the internet for the longest time. Kendrick spits 3 verses, each tougher than the last, and talks about the appropriation of black culture and media and how people will try and steal black culture while also trying to destroy it. He's beyond proud of his culture and heritage, talking about coming from the bottom of mankind. The second verse comes in even harder, and a quick line that I love is, there are some people who genuinely believe we live in a post-racism society, that institutional racism does not exist and programs to combat it are a waste of time, and this line takes a shot at anybody who could believe something so ridiculously false. The third verse ties up the first lines of each verse when Kendrick says, At the end of the third verse, Kendrick asks how much of the violence can he condemn if he himself has participated in it as well, referring to the death of Trayvon Martin. The Blacker the Berry is the album's climax and truly captures much of what Kendrick has been saying all over the project. Juxtaposing once again, we get You Ain't Gotta Lie, where Kendrick says that you don't have to fake aspects of your personality and character to fit in, just be yourself. It's a powerful message. People strive to fit in with their peers. People may take part in behavior they don't necessarily agree with if they think people will like them for it. The song is super catchy and groovy, Kendrick's flows are so fun, and those drums are so smooth. I love the line where he says, It's a great song with an important message. The album version of I follows, and instead of our upbeat single, we get a live version in its place. This upbeat song goes deep into Kendrick's perspective on the world around him. In Kendrick's own words, it's a song about self-expression inspired by the lack of self-love on the streets of Compton. This album hones in on spiritual turmoil, self-doubt, and temptation, but offers redemption. From you will eventually reach I. On this live version of the song, people in the crowd begin to fight while Kendrick on stage tries to break it up and asks how many loved ones has the black community lost due to violence. The added fourth verse sees Kendrick regain control over the crowd, and everything the album has been saying about leadership comes to a head. Mortal Man ends the album as a half-song, half-spoken word track, and on the song portion we get these great verses and refrain that keep asking, when shit hits the fan, is you still a fan? I love the line in the third verse when he says, this song asks if you'll be there for the people that need you through thick and thin, trials and tribulations, success and failure. The second half of the song finally completes the poem that he's been piecing together throughout the album. After he finishes it, he goes on to reveal who he's been reading it to, and it turns out to be Tupac Shakur. When I was younger, and still today, I thought this was the coolest thing. The voice clips of Tupac are from this 1994 interview, and Kendrick wrote the questions around his answers. After Kendrick and Tupac go back and forth, Kendrick reveals the meaning of the title to Pimp a Butterfly. It's beautiful, and to summarize it, I think does a disservice to the poem. When Kendrick asks Tupac for his perspective on said poem, Pac doesn't respond. The album ending here kind of forces the listener to ask what their perspective is on it, not being able to hear Tupac's. For almost 10 years now, people have regarded Kendrick Lamar as the next Tupac, and that's a statement I couldn't disagree with more. There's only one Kendrick Lamar, and we should appreciate him while he's here, cause there will never be another. To Pimp a Butterfly is an 11 out of 10. Here's the tracklist ranking. A masterpiece, a benchmark, a milestone. Hi. Look at my hair. I look like fucking Lord Farquaad. Am I the family member that you only see on holidays? Because my upload schedule would have you believe that that's who I am. Thanks so much for watching, to my returning subscribers. I know I take forever to upload in between. I promise that I'm actually like doing stuff and not just sitting around not making videos. I put out an album in between my last video and now. It's a redux of my first album that I made when I was in high school, and because I made it when I was in high school, it hasn't aged very well. So my good friend and I remixed a couple of the songs and made this anniversary edition of it. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for support. Join the Discord. We're kind of active in it. I try to be as much as I can. And thank you for watching, as always. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, no promises, I will see you all soon. Mwah. Bye.